Welcome to a long time ago. My name is Martyn, and with me, as always, is Adam. How you doing, Adam?
I'm good, thanks. And you?
Good. Yeah, really good. We're going to be talking about the Clone Wars, R/my top 11 episodes, and this is part 4. And this week we're going to be focusing on season 5, episode 15, Shades of Reason. Before I ramble on, as I'm well known to do, Adam, you've obviously just watched this episode. What did you think?
Yeah, not too long ago. I actually remember this one from the first time of watching. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one because Darth Maul's in it, and I feel like I've gone unnoticed saying Darth Maul's probably the best character in the first episode. I don't know if that offends you or not.
Yes. I mean, I do agree with you. Darth Maul is the second best character in the Phantom Menace after
I
Qui-Gon.
said okay. Yeah, I said best, but okay.
I was just correcting you because I knew you'd made a mistake. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll go through my bullet points on this episode. I think it's first worth mentioning that this is part 2 of a 3-part arc. So if you go in to watch this, you should probably watch the part 1 first. But part 2 picks up from the end of part 1, where Darth Maul's basically taken over all the criminal organizations in the galaxy, including the Pike Syndicate and the Black Sun organization. And obviously we know the Pikes from the Clone Wars already. We know them from
and then Book of Boba Fett as
yeah,
well.
Book of Boba Fett. Yeah, and they were also on the Kessel Spice Mines in Solo, a Star Wars story. Yeah, so and the Black Sun organization are from the computer game Shadows of the Empire, which was released in 1996, I want to say, which was a story that
on Nintendo 64. Is that right?
That's right, mate. Yeah, that's exactly right. I've actually got the cartridge behind me still.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And yeah, so that was took place between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and basically told the story of I think them trying to find Han Solo from Boba Fett. But yeah, so they were in it. So, but the thing I wanted to mention about that was I think it probably shows us the early beginnings of Darth Maul, or Maul as he's known now, creating the Crimson Dawn that we see in Solo, a Star Wars story. So I think that's kind of cool. This is something that was obviously made years and years before Solo, and they probably had no intention for it to go that way, but it gives you a nice bit of backstory that they were able to use in order for him to create that crime syndicate. So yeah, that's cool.
Well, that was actually going to be my first question, was going to be, was that an intentional move, do you think, to link it from Solo back to the Clone Wars? Or
I definitely think that they've pulled that story in the Clone Wars and thought, well, we need. I think I actually saw the story in Solo that they needed a main villain who was going to be in charge of the Crimson Dawn, and I think at one point they were going to choose Jabba to be the head gangster, but then they chose Darth Maul, and then obviously they had this backstory that it would make sense for him to be in charge of it all. Now, the other things I picked up on, I thought it was quite interesting that basically no one in the episode, any character trusts anyone who they're working with, which, again, is a total Sith trait, even though the Sith don't trust the Death Watch don't trust the Sith. So yeah, that was kind of fun. One of the brilliant things I think from this episode, or this arc, is Darth Maul, having learned from his master Darth Sidious, instigates a fake war in order to take power on Mandalore. So using the Black Sun and the Pike Syndicate to attack Mandalore, while at the same time them all working with Death Watch to come in and save Mandalore from this fake attack. He's basically done on a planetary scale what Sidious does on a galaxy scale, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. I've got to get at least one of those in.
Yep.
And I think he whether it's intentional or not, it's the Sith at work. We've seen it before, and it's just the way that he's learned well from his master, basically. I should say.
So is he not officially Sith at this point? He's not, is he? I suppose.
No, I don't think he is. I think he loses his apprenticeship once Dooku becomes the second. So
I suppose do they understand him to be dead at this point as well? Do they believe him to be dead?
I think up until the end of this episode, I believe everybody thinks Maul's dead. Yes. Obviously, Obi-Wan would know, and the Jedi know now because in an earlier episode, Obi-Wan faces him, doesn't he? With Asajj Ventress, I think they both face off against them. But
that's right.
And so yeah, I think possibly Palpatine could have found out through the Jedi Council that Maul was still alive. Some other things I wanted to mention: the animation since the last episode we reviewed or critiqued has increased in leaps and bounds once again. The facial animations, especially on Darth Maul, I just thought were absolutely fantastic, and the articulation and the lightsaber fight, and just the crowd scenes when there's the big crowd outside and they're talking on the balcony. It has such an epic scale to it, and I thought it was great. We see the kind of not about this episode, but I thought it was kind of cool that when we get to see Mandalore, we see the domed cities on the planet. And obviously, we see those domed cities. Well, they are doomed cities, I suppose.
Yeah.
In the Book of Boba Fett, when we see the flashback of the Night of 1,000 Tears, where the TIE bombers are completely destroying the cities, and all that's left of those domes is the shells. And I think we actually saw in Mandalorian season 3 trailer the domes, the destroyed domes. So
I have to go back and watch Book of Boba Fett to remind myself of that. I don't remember that scene.
Yeah, there was a Terminator 2-esque scene where you see the KX droids, the K2 droids, and the probe droids killing all the Mandalorians, and then in the distance you see thousands of TIE bombers just dropping bombs on the Mandalorian cities, and being massive sort of nuclear explosion going on in the foreground. And just like all episodes of the Clone Wars, I always like to pick out a moment that makes you go, kid show. When Savage Press basically just pulls up one of the Mandalorian prison guards when they're in prison and just holds him in the air, and then just snaps his neck and drops him by about 4 stories to the ground.
Yes. Yeah. He was pretty badass character.
He was definitely strong. I mean, in this episode particularly, you really get a feeling that he's learned a lot since his early appearances, because he's just walking around, just taking people out left, right, and center without a thought.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's really good. But I always pick one part of an episode that I really love it for, and there's only really one main. I think it, as Dave Filoni says in the special features, an entire act of the episode is just one scene, and that's obviously the lightsaber battle between Savage Press and Pre Vizsla. Sorry,
Pre Vizsla.
And
so Pre Vizsla was voiced by Jon Favreau.
He was, yes. I believe this. Sorry,
did he create that character?
No,
he didn't. That was Dave Filoni.
It's a Dave Filoni George Lucas character, but the story is that Jon Favreau was at Lucasfilm recording sound for Iron Man in the studio next door. So he invited Dave Filoni to come in and see what they were up to. And Dave said, "Oh well, we're working on this episode at the moment. They've got a character we'd love you to voice," and that's basically how it happened.
That's his sort of not introduction to Star Wars, but that was his lead in, his foot in the door.
Yeah,
I
and it was
suppose.
also his first introduction to Dave Filoni, if you think about it. And 12 years on, look at them
Yeah,
both now.
yeah.
So that's it's a really cool moment. So yes, I call it the challenge for the leadership of Mandalore,
Hmm.
and I think this episode we get probably our first visual representation of a challenge for the leadership of Mandalore.
I challenge you, one warrior to another, and only the strongest shall rule Mandalore.
Yeah, that's
It's been
quite an important sort of story, isn't it? Really.
that's why I love this episode so
Yeah.
much. I always loved it before what we saw in the Mandalorian, but the
Hmm.
Mandalorians made me love it so much more because we've seen mentions in both Rebels and again the Mandalorian of whoever rules Mandalore must have the dark saber,
Hmm.
and so we've only ever heard of it. But this episode gives us an actual um, introduction a visual representation of
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
I know there was kind of a mini fight between Paz Vizsla and Din Djarin in the Book of Boba Fett, where he tries to take the dark saber from Din Djarin, but I
Yeah.
don't think that was particularly for the leadership of Mandalore.
No, no. Is there only
So
one dark saber then?
there is now there's a story that's told in an episode of the Clone Wars about a Jedi Mandalorian, which is why he's got the lightsaber. Why there is a lightsaber. There was a Mandalorian who was a Jedi eons ago.
It can't be.
So you recognize it?
That I do. It is the dark saber, a symbol for the leader of House Vizsla, and later the group known as Death Watch.
I didn't know Mandalorians developed a type of lightsaber.
We didn't. This was one of a kind. Legend tells that it was created over 1,000 years ago by Tar Vizsla, the first Mandalorian ever inducted into the Jedi Order. After his passing, the Jedi kept the saber in their temple. That was until members of House Vizsla snuck in and liberated it. They used the saber to unify the people and strike down those who would oppose them. At one time, they ruled all of Mandalore wielding this blade. This saber is an important symbol to that house and respected by the other clans.
Win the saber.
So convoluted. There's so many different sort of stories going on now at this point in time. So do we know how Moff Gideon got hold of it?
Well, we don't know 100%, but I'm guessing it was on the night of Thousand Tears. He probably defeated Bo-Katan for it, but something tells me we'll be seeing how in season 3, maybe 4 of the Mandalorian, how that happened, because I know Gideon's been arrested now in season 2, end of season 2, but he is going to appear in season 3, so it might well be a flashback.
And let's face it, Giancarlo Esposito is an incredible actor. So
he's in everything as well. Everything that's cool, he's in it. It's great.
He plays a great bad guy. So more of him, more of that, please.
Absolutely, definitely. So yeah, just going back briefly, I think this episode gives us a lot of clues. Obviously not at the time, but it now gives us a lot of clues as to what we're probably going to be seeing in continuing storylines in the Mandalorian going forward. So that's interesting. So I think it's important to watch this episode just to get a bit of background as to what's going to happen. Now, Bo-Katan clearly doesn't want an outsider or a non-Mandalorian ruling the planet.
In the midst of all of that, something that could not get lost is that Bo-Katan, there's no way she was going to go for this.
Never! No outsider will ever rule Mandalore.
Her loyalty is to Pre Vizsla and to Mandalore beyond even the code that they have as warriors, that she believes in Mandalore as a whole. She is a Mandalorian. She's not a Death Watch. She puts that above her own separatist group within her own people.
You're all traitors!
Unfortunately for you, history will not see it that way. Execute them!
You then, I think that moment you see the Death Watch split. So you have the Darth Maul side of Death Watch, and then I think whoever follows Bo-Katan becomes something else. I don't think they stay as Death Watch. So I'm guessing, and I'm gonna have to spoil a bit of the future here, but when Darth Maul's defeated and the Death Watch go off on their own after the finale of the last arc of the Clone Wars in season 7, you just don't really know what happens to the Death Watch after that. So I'm guessing that they then start recruiting younglings. Is it younglings they use? Foundlings, sorry,
Foundlings, yeah.
So the Death Watch on Maul's side that split away from Bo-Katan, you can perhaps then see the beginnings of what they become in the Mandalorian, where they can't take their masks off and they have all those rules that they have to follow. So again, this episode is really cool because it kind of gives you that first inkling as to why they might do this, because ultimately the way that they were doing things before and the way Mandalore unfolded the planet and the politics and the battles and everything unfolded meant that they needed to change their way. And I think even Pre Vizsla says at some point, in a previous episode, we follow the ways of the ancient Mandalorians and our warrior ways. So sorry, I'm rambling and not making a point, but again, I think it just leads to perhaps things that we're going to see in the future or have already seen. And I think that's really great.
So Mandalorian armor, is that all Death Watch? Because I got a little bit sort of confused with this, with like how the sort of Mandalorian work. Because not all of them wear the armor, do they?
They don't know. Most of them don't in the Clone Wars, in this part of the timeline. Now, I'm going to have to paraphrase because I can't go into it for too long, but basically the Mandalorians were a warrior race for thousands of years, and basically they were just killing each other and wiping each other out because they were always fighting, much like the Sith actually. And at some point in their history they decided to throw out the warrior side and become pacifists, which when you see Duchess Satine and all of the Mandalorians that live in the cities, there's no Mandalorian army because they've lived in a certain amount of time now as pacifists. And the Death Watch, who are following the old ancient Mandalorian ways, the ways of the warriors, are banished to a moon that's just off the planet of Mandalore. I think it's Concordia, but I might have got that wrong, but I think it's Concordia. And that on that planet, they're exiled there, and obviously, they want to bring back the old ways because they think that the pacifist way is ruining their planet and their culture. So that's why in the Clone Wars era you don't see anybody other than the Death Watch wearing the armor. So yeah, does that answer the question?
Okay, well, yeah, more or less.
Yeah. But then when you get to latter periods, they're all wearing the armor because I guess the pacifist side of things, obviously, when the Empire bombed their planet.
Because it was like the introduction of the Mandalorian series that sort of threw everything off for me. I was like, how are they all wearing the armor? I don't know.
But there's obviously there. Well, no. I mean, there is obviously a lot less of Mandalorians because they've been wiped out pretty much, and that's why they probably had to bring in foundlings, I would guess, as well, because there were no pure blood Mandalorians to carry on the Mandalorian way. So again, I'm sure we'll find all this out in the future on the show. But So the fight itself, wow! I mean, absolutely brilliant. The camera work's fantastic. I thought the animation was fantastic, and there was just one moment which made me like laugh out loud, but in a good way, not thinking it was silly. But when Darth Maul's just about to defeat Pre Vizsla and he knees him in the face, you actually see an animated tooth come flying out of his mouth, which I spotted on the second viewing earlier today, which I thought was great. And part of me always felt when watching this episode that Darth Maul was kind of playing the part. Oh, well, I'll make it look like it's really difficult because I could defeat you.
That's what I was going to say. it was a great battle, but I felt like as a Sith, he should manage that so much easier, shouldn't he? So you think he was toying with him?
Initially, I thought he was toying with him, and I thought, oh, he's got to make it look good, because if he just breaks his neck using the Force or something like that, they're just not going to, he's got to get the respect of the clan, hasn't he, in order to take over. So,
okay, that makes sense.
Well, but after today's viewing, I've changed my mind completely. I think he actually is having a hard time, because for the full disclosure, I watched the special features about this episode on the DVD after I'd watched the episode, and Dave Filoni actually states that they want.
Vizsla's gonna unload everything he's got at Maul to try and win this fight.
For generations, my ancestors fought proudly as warriors against the Jedi.
When I told Jon Favreau what was gonna happen, he was thrilled. He was like, wow, I never in a million years guessed that Darth Maul would take me out. And I'm like, yeah, how about that?
Nice, good. Well, I can't wait.
The challenge was out there to make an incredible lightsaber fight in a way that we'd never seen it before, mixing in concussive weapons, laser darts, all kinds of things. Ending with, an epic, there goes your head kind of moment.
To show for the first time ever a Mandalorian being able to use every aspect and everything they've got on their suit in a fight, because these guys fought the Jedi in a war thousands of years ago, and they gave them a good kicking. So he wanted to show, so they are capable. And looking back at it, you can actually see the frustration in Maul's face that it isn't as easy as he thinks it's going to be. And it's only when I think he fires a couple of kind of blades at him and it catches him in the cheek and cuts both his cheeks or one of his cheeks, you actually see him, right, enough's enough, and he just make sure that he destroys the jetpack, which basically takes most of Pre Vizsla's
powers, if you like.
Yeah, powers, if you like, away from him.
Better word.
Yeah, because he can't just fly off and start throwing bombs and stuff like that. So yeah, I actually think
grounded. We all know about the higher ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that was, well, I know it's done on purpose, because as I say, I watched the special features, but I think that's actually much better than Maul playing him a little bit, because I think it's a good way of showing that these Mandalorians aren't something to be trifled with, because how many times, again, I'm going to have to go back to the Mandalorian, have we seen Din Djarin just absolutely take out 5, 6, 7 people without really much of an effort?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And there's one other thing I wanted to bring up about the fight, was it's another child moment, was the beheading at the end of the episode, where he just cuts off Pre Vizsla's head, and of course it pans round the back of somebody as the camera does, so as he's bringing the blade, it's
cleverly
down,
done, but we know that's what's happened.
I thought that was absolutely wow. That's pretty hardcore. But again, I was reading up some trivia on this episode, and apparently they planned to film the beheading and actually show it. And they were going to show his head rolling down the stairs, but I should imagine George probably came in and said, "No, we're not doing that.
We better not.
No, we better not do that." So, but then I thought, oh, this is really hardcore for Star Wars, but no, it's not, because we have seen it before, haven't we, with Count Dooku? And if you look in the background, well, I don't know. If you look in the background when Count Dooku gets his head chopped off, you can actually see his head bouncing around next to the chair of Palpatine's prison chair. So we have seen it before and in live action. So maybe it's not as bad as maybe it does get you a PG-13 in America, chopping someone's head off. I would have thought it'd be higher, but what do I know?
Well, it's animated, so they might just lower it. I don't know.
No. But that's all I've got really for this episode, and I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too, to be fair. And like I say, it was one that I've remembered quite clearly from the first watch. So yeah, Brilliant. All right, that's enough for this week. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like and subscribe button. And we will catch you in the next one. See you later.
Bye.
This was all rapid fire. It really, I think, came together in this fight for something that was really remarkable and memorable on our show. It was without a doubt the best fight that we had ever done until the next episode. And that one's better.